There in John chapter 12, we'll read verses 1 through 8. It says, "Then 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany where Lazarus was, who had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served, but Lazarus was one of those who sat at the table with him. Then Mary took a pound of very costly oil of spikenard, anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, who would betray him, said, 'Why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?' This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the money box, and he used to take what was put in it. But Jesus said, 'Let her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always.'" The ending of chapter 11 and the beginning of chapter 12, there's a great comparing and contrasting that's happening there. If you look at Lazarus being brought back from the dead, you see the response of the Pharisees, how they're angry, they're indignant, and they're just looking for another reason to murder Jesus and get rid of him, simply because he brought back someone from the dead. And yet here we have this family, and we're going to see there's more than just family here, that the way they respond to the work of Jesus is gratitude and wanting to show Jesus how grateful they are for him. Within the timeline here, it's important for us to realize, if you're a student of the Bible or even if you're not, David Guzik, he mentions how John gave us a time marker 6 days before the Passover. This is the last week before the death and burial of Jesus Christ. Almost one half of John's gospel is given to this last week. Matthew uses 33% of his gospel for the last week. Mark 40% and Luke 25% of his gospel are dedicated to the last 7 days of Jesus' entire life. And here we see how much Jesus enjoyed being with people. And how Jesus, he didn't make everything about his feelings or about what he was going through. I mean, imagine if you know that within 6 days, your 12 closest friends are all going to forsake you. One of them is going to turn you over to your greatest enemies. You're going to be beaten beyond human recognition. You're going to be crucified. And you're going to be left all alone. How are you going to treat people that last week? What are you going to be doing that last week? How are you going to be preparing yourself that last week? And where we find Jesus is sitting down with his friends, eating with them, having a good time with them. It's not like he's sucking all the fun out of the room. Jesus, what's wrong? No, I'm not going to tell you. No, he's so present and he loves spending time with people that he's there in the presence of his friends during an insanely difficult week. Here in verses 1 and 2, we see Lazarus. His name is mentioned twice. And then it specifically tells us that this is Lazarus who was dead, but was now raised from the dead. He was made alive. Anybody here spiritually? You were dead, but now you're alive? Amen. That's each and every one of us. Each and every one of us, we were once dead, but now we are alive. And here we see in verse 2, they made a supper for Jesus. And we see the usual characters sort of fulfilling their usual roles, but a whole new heart here. We see Martha, she's serving. Lazarus is sitting at the table, and we're about to see Mary once again at the feet of Jesus. The difference between this portion of scripture and the last time we saw these two sisters and the time before that is that this, Matthew 26 tells us, was happening in the house of Simon the leper. So they're not in Martha, Mary, and Lazarus' house. This time they are in Simon the leper's house. That's what Matthew 26, 6 through 8 tells us. And although he was called Simon the leper, it would be better stated Simon the former leper. Simon, the artist formerly known as the leper, right? That's what he should have been known as. And how special and how sweet this must have been. You have one guy brought back from the dead. You have another guy whose body and flesh was rotting away, and both of them are there throwing a feast, throwing a party for Jesus out of gratitude for what Christ has done in their lives. Throughout the study this morning, we're seeing what true gratitude does. You could also write down true worship. But the first point is that true gratitude, it celebrates our differences. True gratitude, it celebrates our differences. The first time we met Martha and Mary in Luke chapter 10, verse 39 and 40, that's where I sort of mess with Martha. When I see her in heaven, I'm going to have to answer. But she's always mandando, right? She's always telling people what to do. Even Jesus, in Luke chapter 10, verse 40, it tells us Martha was distracted with much serving. She approaches Jesus and she says to Jesus, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore, Lord, tell her to help me. I mean, this is a bold woman here. Maybe your mother-in-law tells you what to do all the time, even in your house. Here, Martha is telling the creator of the universe what to do. This is the first time. But now everything's different because she has seen her brother who was once dead and now he's alive. All of a sudden, who cares who's serving alongside of her? Who cares how hard I'm working versus this person? And truly that can rot away and erode at our relationships. We say, man, I'm the one that's always working hard. What about so-and-so? I'm the one always planning. What about so-and-so? I'm the one always doing this. What about so-and-so? Instead of realizing that Jesus has added different parts of the body to bring us all together to accomplish his work. If everybody was the planner, what would end up happening is everybody would be arguing what the plan is. That's what would happen. If everybody was just the enjoyer, my wife jokes around on vacation, she's just passenger princess. I take care of everything. I book everything. I send her the flight info. I send her the hotel. I send her everything. If everybody was just riding along, nothing will get planned. And we need all of the different parts for the body of Christ. And this happens when we sit back and realize all that Jesus has done for us. All that Jesus has done for our loved ones. All the different gifts that he's given to each and every one of us. We're able to sit back and look at our family, look at our children and realize, God, you've created each and every one of them different to make our family complete. Instead of just being annoyed that they're not doing exactly what I would be doing here. And when we're only focused on the tasks, when we're only focused on how we want to get something done, when we're only focused on our feelings or how tired we are, or when we begin to compare who's working more, who's paying more, who's doing this, how many hours, it's only bitterness that grows in our hearts towards one another. And with Martha, we see even with the Lord. Here, Martha is showing her gratitude to Jesus by doing what she does best. Serving people, serving Jesus, putting the feast together, doing the dishes. This is what she does best. Mary, she's showing gratitude to Jesus by what she does best. Sitting at the feet of Jesus and ministering to Jesus one-on-one. And even Lazarus, here, he is showing Jesus his gratitude by doing what he does best. He's simply fellowshipping and dining with Jesus. He's just listening. It's interesting. We have the words of Mary. We have the words of Martha. We don't have any words from Lazarus. He's sort of just that quiet guy that just hangs out that everybody likes to be with, right? That's who Lazarus is. We don't have that many words from him. Verse 3 through 5, we see Mary, she takes a pound of very costly oil of spikenard. She anoints the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of oil. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, who would betray him, said, "Why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii?" The second point is that true gratitude offers without any reservation. True gratitude, it offers without any holding back. We see here Judas, who was really just trying to steal from the money bag. He knows that this costly oil was sold or would be worth 300 denarii. That'd be worth 300 days of labor. I looked up what the average salary is here in Miami. Hopefully you don't get bitter. Hopefully we're all grateful, right? But the average salary in Miami is $60,000. So here we have this oil. Ladies, imagine having a perfume that's so expensive that 1 pound of it costs $60,000. A perfume and oil so expensive. I mean, I don't know what they sell at Macy's. I don't think there's anything like that. You're dodging the people trying to spray you while you're walking by. But here we have this perfume that is worth $60,000, a whole year's salary. And she's not pulling the little eyedropper. Okay, how many drops? She's not pulling out a scale. She's not trying to, okay, Jesus, how much did you do for me? How much is my brother's life truly worth? No, she takes this oil and she pours all of it upon the feet of Jesus. It's interesting how when it comes to Jesus, we can be so measured. We can be so cheap. I mean, I know it's not our church, it's other churches out there. But I'm sure you have family and friends that they're so giving once they have to clear out a certain room of their house. Now all of a sudden, all the stuff that was junk, they realize now it's junk. And instead of taking it to the dump, they say, hey, could you use this? Hey, could you use that? Hey, could you use this? When we see with Jesus, what we ought to be giving him is our best, not holding back. In 2 Samuel 24:24, King David, he's facing a situation where a gentleman wants to donate property and oxen for the future temple of Israel. And what David tells him is that I will buy it from you because I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God, which cost me nothing. David said, I'm not going to make an offering to God that has no cost. And yet, how often do we grow bitter when our relationship with Jesus has some type of a cost, some type of a sacrifice? We can grow bitter and angry instead of saying, Lord, you are worthy of it all. You are worthy of this sacrifice and so much more. Early church father Tertullian, he says, spending money under the pretext of piety is the way to the greatest profit. When we spend for the Lord and when we worship God out of holiness and out of worship, it only leads to great profit. I mean, consider David and how much he spent preparing the temple. A temple he would never step foot in, a temple he would never worship in, a temple he would never ever see built. And yet David, he pours so much gold and silver and precious metals and stone and wood. He takes out of all the money he has to prepare that temple to be built the moment his son comes on the scene. What does our gratitude? Are we lavish with the Lord? Are we lavish with our family? Hey, honey, I love you. I'm grateful for you, but no, you can't spend money on anything. I got to buy a new boat, but you'll be okay. I know your car's 20 years old, but this is more important. Right? Are we so grateful and lavish with our gratitude? Charles Spurgeon, he says, it was very costly, but it had not cost a penny too much now that it could be used upon Jesus. There was a pound of it, but there was none too much for him. It was very sweet, but there is nothing too sweet for him. You see, that's the beautiful thing when we worship Jesus. We don't have to worry that maybe this is too much. Maybe this is too lavish of a worship for the Lord. And we have to be careful because there are wolves in sheep's clothing or wolves in shepherd's clothing that they want to act like they're lavish in worship to God, but they're just lavish for themselves and their own clothing and their own vehicles. No, this was a worship completely poured out for Jesus Christ. There was nothing for her to get back or take back. And why should we be so lavish upon Jesus? Why should we be so lavish to the Father? Because how did he treat us? He gave us his absolute best. He gave us his one and only Son. Jesus gave us a perfect life. For we, a bunch of sinners, deserving of hell. There's an old hymn. It goes this way. It says, I gave my life for thee. My precious blood I shed, that thou mightest ransomed be and quickened from the dead. I gave my life for thee. What hast thou given for me? I gave my life for thee. What hast thou given for me? What have you given back to Jesus? What have you poured out back at his feet after he's given his own life? As God the Father sends his only begotten Son to die for you and me, what have we done in return? What amount of gratitude, what type of lavishment, what type of oil have we poured back out on his feet? And whatever we bring, he's still worthy of it. He's still worthy of more than that, whether it's 60,000 or 600,000 or 6 million, 600 million. He is worthy of it all. In Revelation chapter 5, verse 12, at the end of the age, we will be singing, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing." He is worthy of it all. Whatever we pour out at his feet, he is worthy of it all. So may we be lavish. May we give in gratitude without any reservation. Next, we see that true gratitude, it comes from humility. It comes from a heart of humility. You see, it would be the task of the lowest slave to wash the feet of the guests. The task of the lowest slave. And yet Mary is here washing and anointing the feet of Jesus. A task reserved for the lowest slave on the rung. And yet Mary, she's taking it upon herself to do this. We can think of David in 2 Samuel 6:16. He's so excited when the Ark of the Covenant is coming back home that David, he's leaping, he's dancing. It tells us in 2 Samuel 6:16 that King David is leaping and whirling and before the Lord. I mean, again, that's pretty weird if you see a grown man twirling before God in worship. Maybe I'm the only one thinking that, but that'd be pretty weird. But David, he's a warrior. He's a killer. He's a giant slayer. And yet he worships God in all honor and humility. He doesn't say, I'm only going to worship God properly from my throne because I'm King David. No, he walks amongst the people. He takes off his kingly robes. He's dressed in just normal clothes of the people, and he's worshiping God. And yet we see his wife despised David in her heart. We'll see more on that later. Another thing we see is that true gratitude does not care about what other people think. True gratitude. And this goes both ways. Sometimes we want to make a great offering to the Lord, and we say, hey, can you take out your camera first? Can you record while I'm doing this? I got to post this later on my social media so everybody can see just how grateful I am to the Lord. That's not right. May we worship the Lord whether there's cameras around or not. The New Testament says to give without our right hand knowing what our left hand is doing. But there are others who are worried about what other people think, so they will dumb down their worship and gratitude. Maybe the first time you ever raised your hands in worship, you thought everybody's going to be staring at me. What is everybody going to think, right? And you're watching around, you're slowly raising your hand, and you got one eye open, right? Or I'll just close both eyes so that I can't see what people are doing or looking at me. She didn't care what other people think, to the point that she uses her own hair to wipe the feet of Jesus. You see, hair, we know it's very important for women. Even within our culture, hair is so important. It's always heartbreaking when you see a woman going through cancer. I remember my mom when she lost her hair and how heartbreaking that is. But in this culture, it's even more important than that. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 15, it tells us, but if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given to her for a covering. You see, even Jesus, when he washed the disciples' feet, what did he use? It tells us he girded himself with a towel. But here, Mary, she loves Jesus so much, and she could care less what others think, that she's willing to wipe the feet of Jesus with those things that bring glory to her. That thing, her hair, that is the glory of a woman, she's willing to let that down to wipe and wash and anoint the feet of Jesus? Friend, what do we do with the things that bring us glory? With the things that you are good at? Is it all about yourself, your pride, your ego? Or do we take those things that bring us glory and we say, Lord, I'm going to just lay this at your feet. I'm going to use this to wipe your feet. Next, we see how true gratitude gives its fragrance to the whole entire house. This gratitude, this worship, it filled the whole entire house with this fragrance. Again, imagine, some of you, you know someone that they use a lot of cologne. Usually it's the dudes, not so much the ladies, right? There's a couple guys at the church. If I don't have cologne, I know I can give them a big hug, and I'll smell like I did put on cologne for the next 24 hours, right? But she pours out a pound of oil, a pound of this fragrance, and now the whole entire house can smell it. In Philippians chapter 4, verse 18, Paul says, indeed, I have all and abound, and I am full, having received from Epaphroditus the things sent from you, a sweet-smelling aroma, an acceptable sacrifice, well-pleasing to God. Family, when we have truly grateful hearts for what Christ has done in our lives, it fills our whole entire home with that fragrance. It fills our marriage with that fragrance. It fills our parenting with that fragrance. When there truly is a gratitude, not just what Jesus has given us, but what Jesus has kept us from. It makes our gratitude like 2 or 3 times multiplier. Because what I truly deserve is hell for all of eternity. And yet he saves me from hell. He doesn't just keep me as a slave, but then he makes me his friend. He adopts me as his son. Then he blesses me with a wife. He blesses me with kids. He blesses me with each and every one of you. That gratitude, it gets multiplied so much more when we realize what I deserve is nothing. What I deserve is hell for all of eternity. And when we're filled with this gratitude, the fragrance is different within our homes. The smell within our marriages, the smell within our parenting, the smell on family vacation or when you get home from work, there is a different fragrance permeating the house. 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 15 tells us that we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. It's such a sweet season as a church because every week there's new coworkers coming, there's new family members coming, there's new friends coming because you are the fragrance of Christ where you go. As you have that true gratitude, there is the fragrance of Christ. What is different in this person? How could they be so grateful? There's so much drama at work and with the higher-ups. How is this person so happy? They're going through all these health issues. How could this person have so much peace? It is the fragrance of Christ for those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. In Ephesians chapter 5 verse 2, it tells us to walk in love, as Christ also has loved us and given himself for us, an offering and sacrifice to God for a sweet-smelling aroma. May we walk in that love. Walk in that gratitude so that fragrance would fill our entire house. Verse 4 through 6, we've seen a lot of the good news, but here's the bad news. It tells us, but one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, who would betray him, said, why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief, and he had the money box and used to take what was put in it. We see Judas, he's acting as if he's so holy. Why didn't we just take that money and give it to the poor? But we see all he cared about was being able to steal from that money box. It sounds like a lot of politicians, right? Acting like they care for the people, but they're just trying to take from those donations. Sadly, a lot of prosperity gospel churches, they're trying to act as if they care for the poor. They want to give money here. They want to give money there. They're always telling people to give money. And yet what they really want is more money for their own pockets, for their own vehicles, their own planes, their own several vacation houses that they have. And sadly, here what we see is that true gratitude might get attacked by other people, even disciples. Even other disciples. We see Judas, he starts off this attack. And we could think, yeah, Judas, he's the worst. Of course he attacked her. Of course he attacked her. At this moment, there was no idea that Judas was the one who was going to betray Jesus. If you've ever watched some of those whodunit TV shows, whether it's Scooby-Doo or Murder, She Wrote or whatever you're watching now, right? You start thinking, oh, it must be this guy. It was the first person that's always shown. That's always the person who does it at the end. None of the disciples thought it was Judas. Even in the Last Supper, Jesus says, one of you will betray me. It's not like all the guys looked at the end of the table looking at Judas saying, I know it's him. It's him. It's that bad guy that walks around. He's always dressed in all black. He's got black eyeliner. He's always so mad and angry. No, none of them thought it was Judas. Even when Judas leaves at that Last Supper, when Jesus says, one of you will betray me, they thought he went to go buy more food. None of them thought it was Judas. But here we have John writing this some 20, 30, maybe even 60 years afterwards. And he says, that guy, he was robbing from us the whole time. He was stealing from us the whole time. And we may think, Jesus, why would you allow a Judas within your inner circle? You prayed over these disciples. You fasted over these disciples. Why in the world would you allow a Judas within your inner circle? I think it's so that we would be able to work when we have a Judas in our inner circle. That we wouldn't be so surprised. That we would still be able to love, not just those who love us, but even love our enemies. To pray for those who spitefully use us. True gratitude and might get attacked even by other disciples. In Matthew's account of this, Matthew 26 verse 8, it tells us after she poured out this flask of fragrant costly oil, she poured it on his head and he sat at the table. But when his disciples saw it, this is disciples plural, it tells us they were indignant, saying, why this waste? So maybe Judas was the one that started this complaint, but we see that he finds a whole group of people that want to complain with him. And is that not true? Do the complainers not always find other complainers? They find other people to complain with. And then it sounds so loud. However, as G. Campbell Morgan says, it's a great compliment to be criticized by certain people. It is a great compliment to be criticized by certain people. We truly do have to grow thicker skin and not care so much about what people think about us. And when you look at the character of a person and they're the ones complaining about you, you should be able to take a step back, pray, ask the Lord to give you the right heart, and wear it as a badge of honor. Lord, if this person's complaining about me, Lord, I'm in good company. Charles Spurgeon, he says, to be found guilty of excess of love to Christ is such a blessed criminality that I wish we might be executed for it. It were sweet to be put to death for such a crime. For other people to say you're a Jesus freak or you love Jesus so much. You're going where? It's Sunday. The Dolphins are playing. What are you doing? You're going to church again? You were there on Sunday and Tuesday and Wednesday. What are you doing going again? You're serving at church? How much do they pay you? What are they doing? Are they selling you a spot in heaven, right? And when people are mocking you for your love and worship for Christ, it's a sweet place to be. And we also have to be careful that we don't become those disciples, that we are judging and critical at people's worship. We got to be careful with that we're not critical over somebody else's worship. Verses 7 through 8, but Jesus said, let her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always. The blessing is, even though true gratitude might be attacked by even Jesus' disciples, true gratitude is seen by Jesus. It's seen by Jesus himself. We read this thousands of years afterwards, and who's the hero of the story? It's not the disciples, it's Mary. And wherever you're at today, it's a blessing to be able to be okay with being misunderstood. Because if your heart is right before God, as the years go on, God is going to reset things the way that it actually went down. The truth will actually come out sooner or later. True gratitude, it's seen by Jesus. Him stating, "Let her alone," is Jesus telling the disciples to back off. He says, "You guys are a bunch of bullies. 12 of you are ganging up on this one woman. Back off." Jesus is the one who steps in and defends her. And it's a blessing to let Jesus be your defense. If you're constantly defending yourself, you're going to grow so exhausted and so tired. Here, Jesus defends her, and he says in verse 8, "The poor you will have with you always, but me you do not have always." And we get those critiques even in the church. A mission trip costs how much? $1,000 per person? Why don't you just send $20,000 to that church in Africa? They could do more that way. There are people that they critique this. Yet in Deuteronomy 15:11, even from the Old Testament, it says, "For the poor will never cease from the land." Don't let any politician tell you otherwise. The poor will never cease from the land. "Therefore I command you, saying, you shall open your hand wide to your brother, to your poor and your needy in your land." Jesus states, hey, I'm present here to be able to accept this worship. The poor, they're going to be here after I come and after I go. And in our worship to Jesus, yes, we ought to have this open hand to the poor and the needy. But the greatest way we can affect and minister to the poor and needy is by worshiping Jesus Christ. That's the most important thing. If we're feeding them physically, but they get no spiritual nourishment, we're just making their path to hell comfortable. That's all we're doing. We need to, number one, worship the Lord, show that gratitude, and then also open our hand to the poor and to the needy. Next, true gratitude puts us in a position to go deeper with Jesus. You see, Mary, she knows something that none of the 12 other disciples know or understand or realize. And it's because every time we've seen Mary, where has she been? At the feet of Jesus. Every single time we see Mary, she's at the feet of Jesus. She's not arguing about who's the greatest. She's not arguing if the falafel or shawarma was good enough or not. No, every single time we see Mary, she's at the feet of Jesus. She's in the presence of Jesus. If you remember at the beginning of the study, we're a week before the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And Mary knows what's happening. This is why she's doing this. She's realizing this might be my last chance to show him how grateful I am. Warren Wiersbe puts it this way. He says, Mary was giving the roses while Jesus was still alive and not bringing them to the funeral. Oftentimes we go to funerals and somebody always gives us that nugget of truth to tell the people you love that you love them. To show your gratitude to the people that you love now. To spend that time with them now. To buy them the flowers now. And there's so much wisdom in that. And this is what Mary's doing. She's saying, I don't want to wait till Jesus dies to show him that I'm grateful for him. I want to show him right now while he's still alive. I want to show him before he passes away and he's dead. And it's interesting because Mary loved Jesus so much that she didn't use this oil even on her own brother. She didn't use it on Lazarus. She kept this oil. She kept this anointing oil for Jesus Christ and he alone. Even the disciples, the same night that Jesus would be betrayed, they're arguing who's the greatest among them. They're falling asleep in the Garden of Gethsemane when he asks for help. And yet here is Mary knowing what's about to go down, anointing Jesus before his burial. In Mark 14, verses 8 through 9, it tells us she has done what she could. She has come beforehand to anoint my body for burial. Assuredly, I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her. Finally, true gratitude does what it can today. It does what it can today, right here and right now. So often we make excuses in our worship to Jesus or our gratitude to Jesus, saying, right now is not the perfect time to do it. Right now is not the perfect time, so I can't do it. I suffer from that oftentimes. If I can't do something perfectly, what's the point of doing it at all? That's why my diet always keeps getting pushed back and back and back and back. Thanksgiving is coming, then Christmas is coming, then New Year's is coming, then Valentine's Day is coming, then March Madness is coming, then Cinco de Mayo, and you keep kicking the can down the road. True worship says, whatever I can do today, I'm going to do today. Whatever I can do right now, I'm going to do it right now. That Mark 14 verse 8, she has done what she could. 2 Corinthians 8:12 tells us, for if there is first a willing mind, it is accepted according to what one has and not according to what he does not have. The way the Lord looks at our worship, he doesn't judge us by what we don't have. Hey, this person worshiped me this way. Why aren't you worshiping me like that? Why did you only give me this much? Why did you only give me 1 hour? Why did you only do this 1 week? That's not the way the Lord looks at our worship. He looks at us in what we do have, what we are able to give. That's why when the widow gives those 2 mites, Jesus stops all the disciples and he says, this woman has given more than everyone else combined. Because the way the Lord looks at our worship, the way he looks at our gratitude is what we have today. What can you do today? Can you spend 15 minutes in prayer? Can you spend 1 hour volunteering? Can you spend 1 hour ministering a week? What can you do? Because so often we're waiting to worship Jesus or show our gratitude when things are perfect. And guess what, family? They'll never be perfect. Whatever season you're in right now is the simplest season you're going to be in. Life only gets more complicated. It only gets fuller. It only gets busier. If we can't find time to show that true gratitude today, we never will. So may our true gratitude to Jesus Christ, may we be able to celebrate our differences. May we be able to take a step back in Thanksgiving, see everybody around the house doing all their things and say, Lord, thank you for this crazy family you've blessed me with. If everybody was just like me, it'd be boring. Or maybe you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. Lord, if everybody was like me, it'd just be chaos. So Lord, thank you for all the different people. True gratitude, it offers without reservation. What do you have to give for the Lord? A year of college, your medical school, your car, your house, whatever it is. It's not about me trying to take it from you. It's how do you want to worship the Lord? What do you want to give him? True gratitude, it brings humility in our lives. True gratitude, it doesn't care about what others think. True gratitude is a fragrance that fills the entire house. True gratitude, and we have to be ready for that, it might get attacked even by other disciples. But we don't have to defend ourselves. Jesus, he'll be our defender. And he's a far greater defender than any of us, because that true gratitude is seen by Jesus Christ. True gratitude, it puts us in a position to go deeper with Jesus, to understand Jesus better. And finally, true gratitude does what it can. So ask yourself as you leave this place, what can you do for Jesus? So often we're just measuring what I can't do. I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I can't do this, so I'm just not going to do anything. No, friend. Just look at what you can do and surrender that and offer that up to the Lord. So hey, the worship team, they're going to make their way up here. Let's all stand, and we'll close in songs. The pastors, they're going to be up front. If you would like any prayer, maybe you've realized you're in a season where you're just bitter and you're saying, Lord, I need you to take out this bitter heart. I need that heart of gratitude. I would encourage you to come up front and pray with the pastors.